A deal on Dickens, who could resist? A stack of Austen, warmly kissed. Golden Age crime tales twist and turn, every page a treasure to learn. Books keep coming home with me, piles so tall they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea, reading always feels so free.
Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. I don't have a whole lot of time before I need to run off to stream my liturgy hours, but I'm hoping that I can get a quick review in before I have to go and do that. So my review is of Millionaire Baby. I started this a couple days ago. Actually, hang on, the library card is in here. So I started that on the 5th and I finished it on the 7th. And I'm still finishing up the book journal. I did find a picture of the actual cover that I have and just use that to make a library pocket. This is a different cover of the same book. The baby shoes are significant. And then this is actually a picture in the front of the book along with the caption that comes with it. So, let's see. There it is right there. I had to be careful with this book because it's kind of falling apart. This is an older book. It is a 1905 book. I mean, it's in readable shape. It does have a page that came out, but as long as I'm careful with it, it's okay. I'll have to see about trying to mend it, but it's actually in pretty good shape for its age. Like I said, it is readable. I just have to be careful how I handle the binding. But yeah, this is Millionaire Baby. It's another Anne Catherine Green. It counts for the public domain readathon that Mom, who is Marlicious Meanderings, and I are doing with Gavin of Genre Books. Basically, for January and February, we're encouraging people to read public domain books. I happen to have a physical copy of The Millionaire Baby that I picked up last year, but this is available in the public domain. And I do recommend checking it out. I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed the narrative voice, and it's not like, don't think of it as like a typical Golden Age mystery where, because this is not Golden Age, this was written in what would be considered, the Victorian era in England. So this, but, although I guess this is a little bit late for Victorian since 1905, but her earlier works were like the Leavenworth Case, which was her first one, is in the Victorian era. But I can't remember the exact date for the Leavenworth Case. And I don't have that data on me. But I double-checked with Arion, and not recently, but when I watched one for other videos, I had double-checked to make sure that as long as the author's lifespan and writing span covered the Victorian era and they're American, it counts. And Anna Catherine Green did write during the Victorian era, particularly Leavenworth Case, which was her first one, because she predated Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes by 5 or 6 years. And I've stated this before, she is considered the mother of detection fiction, just like the detective novel, excuse me. She's considered the mother of the detective novel, and just like the Edgar Allan Poe is considered the father of detective fiction, and they're both American. But a lot of her works, as far as I can tell, seem to be centered in New York, so I think that's probably where she was from. This one, like I said, I enjoyed this one. I liked the narrative voice. I thought that the story was interesting, but don't expect of it some of the leavings of crumbs where you're given all the information throughout the story the way that you might get with the Golden Age mysteries, because they didn't have the same idea necessarily of fair play. you get the same thing when you read an Arthur Conan Doyle, where you aren't necessarily left all the same clues that you would expect in an Agatha Christie. Sometimes information is kept pretty close to the vest until the reveal, so you wouldn't have had the opportunity to solve it before Sherlock does in Conan Doyle's work, or before Ebenezer Gryce does in the Leavenworth case, simply because you don't have all the information available to you. That being said, it just ends up, you can try to match your wits with the detective, and this is not an Ebenezer Gryce. This is, I don't know if this particular character comes back or not. The character, she makes a point of mentioning that the character is a rather young man, and it's actually an important point within the story that he is a rather young man. Where does it say his name? Oh, guys, he's not the Ebenezer Gryce character. He is a different character, and I'd be interested to see if they bring him back, because I rather like him. He's a private detective instead of being a police detective the way that Ebenezer Gryce is. Just want to fix this page. It wants to come out. There we go. He has a nice character voice. The mystery is, even though it's not set up the way a Golden Age mystery is, where you would definitely have all the clues as you go, there is enough going on there that you feel like you have the potential of guessing, even though I don't feel like you're given actually all the information as you go along, so you can. But maybe someone who is a more perceptive reader than I am might pick up on something that I didn't. Yeah, I think it was an interesting mystery. I think that the characters are interesting and engaging. I think the story is well written. It's just a fun time with enough going on to keep your interest without necessarily, being... It's not like, don't think of it being like an action-packed. It's a typical older murder mystery where you're there for the ride and the author makes it an enjoyable time to get there. You do try to figure it out along with the detective, and even though I feel like there are certain pieces of information that is held back from you that could have been helpful for you figuring out with the detective, I honestly don't feel too cheated by the fact that he didn't provide that information, because it was a very entertaining read. And also, I knew going in that Anna Catherine Green does not play by the same rule book than the Golden Age mystery authors, so I didn't expect that of her. But I don't feel like she pulled anything completely out of left field. Like, I felt like she set up enough of it that I could be like, okay, yes, I didn't have all the information. I couldn't have solved it at the time, but I can see where certain things where the foundation was laid for other things where this does make sense. There was a certain aspect of the case that was wrapped up in a way that seemed a bit convenient, but it didn't bother me that much. It would have been interesting to see if she had gone a different way with that. If she had allowed a certain threatening persona to remain in the picture, but it worked out that it didn't for the characters, and I do understand why she made the choice that she did. And I'm interested to see how most readers would react to the ending, because I considered it to be a bit of a what's going to happen next kind of ending, kind of an open, sorry, my alarm went off in the middle, kind of an open-ended ending where you could really decide for yourself how a particular conflict was going to end. The mystery is solved, but what a big decision that another character has to make, an important character has to make, is left open at the end, which I thought would bother me more, but I think it's interesting that she chose to go that route, to leave room for imagination, to let you kind of finish that part of the story yourself. So I'm interested in how other readers who might read The Millionaire Baby, especially more modern readers, how, versus a reader of the era, I wonder how our point of view of such an ending might be different from a point of view of a reader of the era, if they would have been okay with that sort of ending, or if they would have been frustrated by not knowing exactly what would happen next, or if they would have felt like they knew what would happen next based off of maybe some social cues that I didn't pick up on because this isn't, this is such an old book. And the culture is different now. I think that for the modern reader, I'm not sure if we're as used to open-ended endings. Like I said, the mystery is solved, so there's not that being left open. But we're used to, I think for the most part, all the loose ends being tied up. And the only reason why I don't consider this to be a loose end is because it definitely was a purposeful choice. It wasn't that the author left a hole and just kind of forgot to tie up that end. It was a very definite choice to stop the story there, to let that decision, which didn't really affect the didn't change the mystery solved. Like I said, that the millionaire baby, what happened to that baby and everything regarding the baby herself was tied up in a nice bow, and that part was taken care of. But I'm interested in how more modern readers might look at a seeming loose end that was not, like I said, a loose end, but a purposeful decision on the author's part. I actually think I rather like it because of the room it leaves for imagination, because I think that character could have gone either way with it. I'd like to think that she made what I believe to be the right choice, and I don't want to give away what that choice was, but I could see her very well making a different one now that she doesn't have a potential blackmailer on her hands anymore to worry about. So, yes, I really enjoyed this story. I would definitely recommend this. I actually think, I want to say I like it better than the Leavenworth case. I enjoyed the Leavenworth case, but I think I like this one better. Perhaps I like the main detective better. Not that I dislike Ebenezer Gryce. And this is the first one I've read without Ebenezer Gryce in it. But yeah, it's not that I dislike Ebenezer Gryce. And actually in the Leavenworth case, your narrator character is a young lawyer who I did rather like. But I think that I might like this one better even than the Leavenworth case. Although there are some interesting, I don't know, I'd be interested to see what people think. There's thoughts I have about the story in comparison to the Leavenworth case. You have definitely some you have female characters with definitely strong personalities who are involved with the story, who they are the ones upon whom they're actually the most important parts of this story other than your detective, both for the Leavenworth case and for the Millionaire Baby. Which I guess isn't terribly surprising considering the fact that the author herself is female. That probably was what she felt most comfortable writing. But I did enjoy the characters presented in here. Your two female main characters are very different from each other, but very definite presences all the same. And they each play their particular parts in the story very well. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about this. I do have to get going. But if you have not yet read The Millionaire Baby, you can get this from the Gutenberg Project. I'm pretty sure if you, for whatever reason, would prefer to purchase it, I think you can probably get it on Kindle to purchase. I got this one off of eBay. I just happened to the price was really good for this particular copy. Like I said, I think it was 1905 edition here. And I think that's actually when this would have been written, is 1905. I don't see any other copyright on this, so I'm pretty sure that this is a first edition for this book, but I can't be 100% sure. But this is the only copyright I see on this book, and I don't see any other markers to state, when this book might have been printed, other than the 1905 copyright date. But yeah, that's it for this. Please check out Anna Katharine Green, or I encourage people to check out Anna Katharine Green, and specifically The Millionaire Baby. And I'm interested in seeing what people think of her, because I don't feel like she really gets talked about that much. I think she's unfortunately one of those forgotten authors by a lot of people, which is a shame, because she did precede Arthur Conan Doyle, and she was influential in her time for, bringing about the popularity of the detective fiction. She wrote a lot of detective books during that era. She made a living off of it. So it wasn't like she was do a couple books and then she stopped and, settled in a different life. No, she was a career writer, and she was known to be a career writer. It wasn't one of those anonymous things. So it's kind of sad that we kind of forget her now, when she had such a footprint at the period. Arthur Conan Doyle, I believe, made a point to see her at one point when he came to America. I think that's what I read in the behind the scenes for the Leavenworth case. There were notes in my copy of the Leavenworth case. I want to say that when he came to America, he did try to make a point of seeing Anna Katharine Green. But yeah, that's it for this review. Thank you very much for joining me. Please check out Anna Katharine Green, or at least try to, really quickly, it's also, besides being for the public domain readathon, this also counts for Manifest Destiny, which is for books that are American that can be read, that are American, or the authors lived during a specific era. So, I said that badly. Manifest Destiny, it's like the American counterpart to Victober, except it takes place all year round, and it's for authors or events that take place during the Victorian era, yet are attached to America versus Britain. That's why Anna Katharine Green, although this work doesn't technically fall during the Victorian era, the author did a lot of her writing during that era, and that's how she counts. Oh, I think I did mention at the beginning. So check out Book Zealots. Ariane, she has more about Manifest Destiny, because I'm sure I mangled it. And both Mom, Marlisa's Meanderings, and Genre Books have videos up on the Exploring the Public Domain, which are probably more coherent than mine have been. But I gotta go. I am late. So I will see you guys next time. God bless. Bye. Oh dear, after that rather long drawn out ending, a thought occurred to me that I want to quickly share about The Millionaire Baby. If I can figure out a way to plug this in elsewhere in the video and then put the ending afterwards, I'll do so. Otherwise, here's my intro to my addendum to my review of The Millionaire Baby. So, one of the things that suddenly occurred to me is that there is in the case for most of the works of Anna Katharine Green that I've read thus far, but there is the notion of the tragic, of the Gothic in this particular story. And actually, I want to say for most of her work that I've read thus far, there is a kind of undercurrent of the Gothic, which it didn't really occur to me until until I finished this review, and then it was just kind of working in the back of my head. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, this is kind of Gothic. This has kind of got that extra level of drama that you don't necessarily see in maybe the slightly more, I don't want to say more grounded, but kind of more grounded fiction of the Golden Age mystery. There's a little bit more of the extreme to a certain extent. She's not quite as extreme as some of the Gothic novels, but there, like I said, there is, in my opinion, kind of the feel of the Gothic with this, with the heightened emotions and some of the extremes of the extremes of the emotions, the extremes of the possible outcomes of certain actions, as well as the extremes of the villainy of certain characters in regards to other characters. That really does, to my mind, make me think of more of a Gothic novel than of like a Christie novel. Whereas people do things that are evil, but it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily always get the feeling of the extreme in the way that you get in this novel, that makes this novel feel a little bit more Gothic. Kind of in the way that some of Conan Doyle's works can feel that way. And, you know, you might not agree with me when it comes to Conan Doyle's. I'm thinking of The Speckled Band. I'm thinking also of another of Conan Doyle's with a young woman who was a bicyclist who was then, someone kidnapped her. Well, first of all, she went to Conan Doyle because she was being followed. And then she gets kidnapped and someone tries to force her into marriage. And like this whole thing, which feels very much Gothic in nature, to my opinion. And that's kind of some of the feeling I get with aspects of Anna Catherine Green's work, both with the Leavenworth case and with this. Maybe not the whole, you know, going to a castle and, you know, not 100%. From what I understand, like things like the Anne Radcliffe kind of things, even though I haven't read her work yet, like, but I understand like a lot of those kind of Gothic novels have like someone locked away and like they're being a castle and all that kind of stuff, or something more like, you know, Jane Eyre, not that level of Gothic, but there is, to my mind, a bit of a Gothic feel to this. So if you want kind of like a in-between Gothic novel but detective novel at the same time, that's what you're kind of getting with Anna Catherine Green. And I think if you enjoy Conan Doyle, I think you would enjoy Anna Catherine Green, because some of his stuff does have that aspect of the Gothic to it. And like I mentioned, those two stories, Speckled Band, you see that. Actually, I kind of feel like you see it a little bit with The Study in Scarlet. It's particularly with the backstory of the perpetrator. There's just, it might be a more modern based Gothic and, you know, not as vivid in the imagery of some of these other more classically Gothic novels. But yeah, kind of a weird, interesting mixture of Gothic and detective fiction that I find to be enjoyable and rather different than what I'm used to reading when you look at like anything from the Golden Age. The closest comparison I do have is something like an Arthur Conan Doyle, which makes sense. I haven't read any of Poe's mysteries, Edgar Allan Poe's mysteries, and I do need to rectify that because I'd like to see how she compares to his work. And Edgar Allan Poe's birthday is on the 19th. He and I share a birthday, actually. So I'm going to probably make a point of searching out one of his works and try to read it that day. But yes, I think I am finally finished with talking about The Millionaire Baby. I'd be interested if anyone else who has gone and checked out Anna Catherine Green agrees with me about how there is at least a hint of the Gothic to her work, as well as, the detective novel, the whole, let's solve a mystery kind of thing. So yeah, I'd be interested in seeing what anyone else thinks about that. Okay, thank you very much for joining me. If this is the ending that I end up going with instead of my long drawn out one from before, like I said, thank you for joining me, and I will see you the next time. God bless. Bye-bye.
Books keep coming home with me, piles so tall they're all I see. Turn a page and sail the sea. Reading always feels so free.